To other honourable members in the House. The honourable member for Davenport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I apologize. Mr. Speaker, it is such a pleasure to rise in the House this afternoon to speak on the Opposition Day motion on Budget 2017, a budget which is to be announced tomorrow by our Minister of Finance at 4 p.m. One part of the opposition motion being debated in this venerable House today focuses on youth, asking that the 2017 budget provide immediate measures to encourage companies to hire young Canadians and address the youth unemployment crisis. I want to thank my fellow member for her concern for Canada's young people. Know that this is also an issue of great importance for the residents of my riding of Davenport, and especially for the Davenport Youth Council, who have identified youth unemployment as a key issue for them. In the time I have today, I will be relaying how youth has been a key focus for our government, outlining key initiatives introduced over the last year, and indicating that there's no doubt that youth will continue to be a key focus for our government moving forward. One of the things that our government understands clearly is that Canada's prosperity will increasingly depend on young Canadians getting the education and the experience they need to prepare for the jobs of today and of tomorrow. One of my very favorite quotes by our Prime Minister is that if we do not give everyone a chance to succeed, we do not live up to the potential of Canada. And now more than ever, Mr. Speaker, all governments at every level need to do all we can to help our youth, to set them up, to get them started, to support them, to do all we can to give them the best start on their road to achieving their potential. Mr. Speaker, young Canadians need to have access to meaningful work from the beginning of their careers. A large part of our success as a country rests on our youth, but unfortunately they still face barriers to employment. As such, I am pleased to let you know that we have been taking concrete measures to help young Canadians enter the workforce and contribute to our country's economy. One of those initiatives that we have launched is the Expert Panel on Youth Employment in October of 2016. We've launched as a way to improve youth opportunities, job opportunities for all youth. And what we have found, the panel's actually found that the panel's findings are key in identifying future investments, including ways to enhance the youth employment strategy, which is also known as YES. Indeed, in Budget 2016, funding for the youth employment strategy was increased by almost $300 million. And that funding is being used in four very specific ways. One is to create new green jobs for youth, so occupations that are involved in preserving or restoring the environment, or jobs in renewable energy or energy efficiency. The second way that the funding is used is increasing the number of youth who have access to the Skills Link program. Very important program that is available, particularly for youth that are disadvantaged in a number of ways. The third way the funding is being used is to increase opportunities for young Canadians who want to work in the arts sector, a sector that's very popular and very rich and diverse in my own riding of Davenport. And lastly, the funding is being used to increase the number of summer jobs offered through the Canada Summer Jobs Program. And let me tell you, I'm very proud, Mr. Speaker, that both last summer and this summer, our government has more than doubled the number of jobs available through the Canada Summer Jobs Program. And the reason it's important to highlight that is because that increases the mentorship for our youth, it increases their job experience, and it helps them to more quickly get started in their future careers. Now, Mr. Speaker, there are also many youth initiatives that fall under the umbrella of skills and employment that support all Canadians. And after extensive consultation with experts, employers, and labour and service providers, we have finalized amended agreements with each of the provincial and territorial governments to provide an additional $175 million in labour market training for youth, for a total of close to $3 billion. Included in this amount is $125 million in funding for labour market agreements and $50 million in funding for the Canada Job Fund. Now, turning our attention to the trades, Mr. Speaker, one of the most promising career paths for young Canadians today is in the skilled trades. Tradespeople play an important role in our economy and our society. We all depend on the work of skilled trades, and we want to encourage more youth to take advantage of good, well-paying jobs in skilled trades. Therefore, the federal government is providing support to Skills Canada to actively promote careers in skilled trades and technologies to Canadian youth by working with local organizations, educators, and governments right across Canada. We are making significant investments in apprenticeship through the Red Seal program, and we're offering numerous federal supports, including grants, loans, tax credits, and EI benefits during in-school training. In addition, our government's providing over $800 million to individuals for the progression and the completion of their apprenticeship training through grants. Our government is working with provinces and territories to make apprenticeship training more consistent across the country, and this will help support apprentice mobility, help apprentices complete their training, and give employers access to a larger pool of workers. Now, Mr. Speaker, our government and indeed the nation recognizes that unions play an important role in training their members for careers in the trade, and as such, to support their efforts, Budget 2016 provided $85.4 million over 5 years, starting in 2016-2017, to develop a new framework to support union-based apprenticeship program. And I do want to let you know, Mr. Speaker, that in Davenport we have a lot of union workers. Most of them are in the building trades. And there's a lot of youth that are very interested in a career in trades because they pay very good pay. They provide good paying jobs, and these good paying jobs will help them to support their families and their communities in the future. The federal government is also addressing the importance of demand-driven education and training through the Student Work Integrated Learning Program. And so I'm specifically talking to training and funding for training, Mr. Speaker, because I think it's equally important in terms of setting our youth up for the future and for their future careers and to achieving their future potential. Budget 2016 announced an investment of $73 million over 4 years to support partnerships between employers and willing post-secondary educational institutions. The program will help ensure students develop the foundational entrepreneurial and business skills required to secure meaningful employment in high-demand occupations in the fields of science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and business. We need to continue to work with colleges and universities to prepare the next generation of Canadian youth for the highly skilled jobs that are out there. And we need to ensure that Canadian employers can bring about and benefit from co-op and work-integrated learning opportunities. And so I just want to mention, Mr. Speaker, that there are so many companies and businesses in Davenport that are very excited about this. That more and more of our companies are actually working with post-secondary education to make sure that there's the right training and the right education that's provided to our youth, and it sets them up to more quickly enter the workforce and more quickly start developing their careers. So I think we're going to see more and more of this in the future. I also want to talk about Indigenous youth for 1 minute. It's another key focus for the Davenport Youth Council, my community. And as you know, Mr. Speaker, everyone in this House is aware of our commitment, this government's commitment to restoring fairness and opportunity to Indigenous people, including Indigenous youth. And one way to help Indigenous youth receive training and find jobs is through the Aboriginal Skills and Employment Training Strategy, also known as ASSETS. And it's through this program that we've been working with Indigenous organizations to further strengthen their capacity to provide job training and to wraparound supports. Our government has engaged with Indigenous stakeholders to see how we can improve and strengthen the Indigenous labor marketing programming for a future longer-term strategy. And I know, Mr. Speaker, that I'm starting to run out of time, but I also want to mention that our government has provided quite a bit of support for Canada student loans and grants because we know how expensive that education and training actually costs. And we're doing everything we can to make sure that for low-income Canadians and for middle-class Canadians, youth are not going to suffer and they will be able to have access to the grants that they're looking for and to the education that they seek so that they can set themselves up in terms of education, in terms of skill training for the jobs of today and tomorrow. I'm going to sort of move right towards the end. Just to say that, Mr. Speaker, we've accomplished a lot, but we know that there's a lot more to do. We know that the job market is evolving and changing, and that's true in particular for young Canadians, and that's why we're making such historic investments in skills, training, and education. I look forward to the budget announcement tomorrow, and I'm sure that we will continue to support our youth in the future. On behalf of the residents of Davenport, I want to thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to speak today, and I very much welcome questions, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I have listened to the debate throughout the day. And what I haven't heard the government address in any terms is what is a significant issue. And the significant issue is the fact that they took what was a surplus. They promised a $10 billion deficit. They've turned it into a $30 billion deficit with no end in sight. I don't know if my colleague has young children, but it's her children and her grandchildren who are going to be forced to pay for their inability to spend within their means. Certainly the economy is stronger than it was last year when there was a surplus budget. So I would like to ask her, does she suggest that the minister must put in this budget a path back to balance that fulfills our commitment of being in balance by 2019?
The Honourable Member for Davenport.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Honourable Member for her excellent question. You know, when I was canvassing in the last election, I can tell you that I spoke to many families, to many youth, and they said that education's expensive. They said that life is expensive, and so they were very much attracted to the Liberal team at that point, and now the government, because of our desire to invest in the middle class and to invest in youth and to invest in our future. And so that is why we've introduced our Canada Child Benefit. That's why we provided a tax break for the middle class. That's why we've provided all the programs and all the investment that I spent 10 minutes actually highlighting today. I want Canadians to know, and I want the residents of Davenport to know, that we are spending Canadian money in a responsible way, and I think we'll be hearing more about that spending tomorrow when our Minister of Finance makes the announcement around Budget 2017. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Courtenay, Alberni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Honourable Member for her speech. We know that in Canada, the real job creators are small business people. They are the people that are driving our economy. They sit on our volunteer boards and our local governments, and they're struggling to make ends meet. When we look at, when we talk to small business people in our communities, they're having a hard time paying rent to pay their employees' wages. And what we've seen actually over the last 25 years is we've seen a significant tax reduction for Canada's largest corporations. We've seen a reduction from 28% to 15%, and actually under the Conservative government, we saw it go from 22 to 15%. We didn't see the job creation that was promised. Instead, what we saw was Canada's largest corporations having record profits, hoarding tons of money, CEOs earning more money than ever before, seeing corporations shipping money to tax havens and out of the country and avoid paying taxes here in Canada. Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect more. They want to see us invest in our local communities, into our small business people. I want to ask the member, why are we choosing Canada's largest corporations, Canada's CEOs, over small business people, the people that are building our communities? And I asked the member, if this Liberal government, what are they waiting for when it comes to making big companies assume their fair share of the tax burden? And are they going to provide relief to small business people and put them as a priority? Because Canadians expect that we're going to take care of the people that are building our communities, that are serving our communities, and that's the small business people. Thanks, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Davenport.
Speaker, it's such a pleasure to answer that question. I want to thank the Honourable Member for the question. I don't agree with this premise, though, that we are trying to pit or favour large corporations over small businesses. I think that what we're trying to do in Canada is create a strong economy so that it's beneficial for all businesses. I also think we're trying to create a strong middle class and those who are trying to join it, so that the stronger that they are, the stronger our overall economy will be. And that's the reason we introduced our middle class tax cut, and we've talked about that quite a bit in the House. I also want to let you know that the small businesses in my riding really love the summer jobs program. It actually allows them to actually hire local students. It helps to support their own businesses, and it helps them to also support jobs. And so they're very excited about that. The other thing that small businesses are so excited about, I represent the largest Portuguese community in the country. They're really excited about CETA. Many of the small businesses in my riding are doing businesses in Europe, and so they like agreements like CETA that will provide benefits not only to Canadian small businesses, but also abroad. And finally, I'd like to mention, I've mentioned a couple of times the Davenport Youth Council. They're so active. One of their key concerns was small businesses in Davenport. And so it's something that we want to be active on, or they want to be active on. They want to make sure that the Canadian government continues to be active on in terms of supporting not only small businesses, but our overall economy in general. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Resuming debate.